There are more than 200 different nations, colonies, and territories in the world. Indonesia is one of the nations. Many of its people work at producing rubber. Many work at producing rice. Indonesians shop at open-air markets, and their language sounds like this. Greece is another nation with its own customs and ways of life. A great many people in Greece work at shipping and shipbuilding. Many Greeks live and work in towns and cities along the sea, and their language sounds like this. Australia has its own customs and ways of life. And so does the Congo. So does Ireland. Each nation of the world is different in some ways from the others. There are many differences between nations. So you might expect that the people of each nation would keep pretty much to their own affairs. Yet there are many things that bring nations together. For example, trade. The people in this automobile showroom are Swedish. The showroom is close to their home in Sweden. But the car they're buying has been made in another country, in Germany. These women are German, shopping in a neighborhood grocery store in their own country. But the food this housewife is buying was produced in Formosa. Most countries trade this way. Goods made in one country are used in others as nations cooperate through trade. But trade is only one of the ways in which nations work together. Nations may cooperate on construction projects. For example, this is the St. Lawrence Seaway, a waterway on the border between the United States and Canada. Here, some dams and locks were built by people of the United States. Others were built by Canadians. Both countries worked together to produce a water route from the Atlantic to the Great Lakes. It's a route used by ships traveling to and from ports in both Canada and the United States. Cooperation among nations also means easy travel from country to country. Take Mr. Concerti. He's a citizen of Italy, and his plane has just landed in Ireland. It's operated by Irish International Airlines. Their planes fly between international airports around the world. Air routes help bind the nations of the world together. Mr. Concerti's company makes shoes. His luggage includes a case of samples he brought to show to customers in Ireland. At the airport, an inspector checks Mr. Concerti's passport. A passport is a travel permit. It's given to a person by his home country. Nations that work together accept each other's passports and allow each other's citizens to enter and travel. Another inspector checks Mr. Concerti's sample case of shoes. Nations that work together let travelers bring certain goods into their countries. Before Mr. Concerti's work in this Irish city gets underway, he checks at the Italian consulate for some business advice. This is the office run by the Italian government to help Italian citizens as they travel. Like most consulates, this one has a commercial attaché. He's an Italian whose job is to help other Italians, like Mr. Concerti, travel and do business in Ireland. Most important nations have consulates in other nations around the world. Here is an Israeli consulate in Denmark. The people of Israel speak the Hebrew language. The typewriter has Hebrew characters. As Israel exchanges information with other nations, many letters must be translated to Hebrew. Also, information is available at a library in the consulates. Most consulates have books and newspapers from their home countries. Nations also have embassies in other nations. This is the Swedish embassy in Norway, where the Swedish ambassador to Norway has his offices. This is the United States Embassy in Sweden. All nations that want to keep in close touch with others have embassies in each other's countries. Inside an American embassy, we might notice that more important matters are handled here than in a consulate. For example, through their embassies, nations may cooperate when natural disasters occur, like floods and earthquakes. A few years ago, there was a severe earthquake in Chile. People were homeless, in need of food and medical care. Chile was unable to deal with the problems alone. So Chile asked, through its embassies in other nations, for help. And soon, help arrived from several countries, including the United States. Some people in different countries work together through international clubs and organizations. These men belong to Lions International. They live in Hamburg, Germany. Lions International is one of many organizations that have members in countries around the world. Money raised by Lions Club members has paid for a home for orphans in Austria and a center for the blind in Germany. Even you may belong to an organization that helps people in many nations, the International Red Cross. The money you give to become a member might be used to send help to victims of an avalanche in Switzerland. Nations may also work together in science. Take space exploration, for example. This rocket is carrying a satellite into space. It's being launched by scientists in the United States. This satellite observation station is in England, where British scientists are tracking the American satellite. Here in this bookstore, there is more evidence of nations working together. The store carries books of many nations. The books here are written in many languages. This one is in French and published in France. Here's an English translation published in the United States with the permission of the French publisher. It's easier to work with people in other nations when we know what they are thinking about. And we can learn this not only by reading their books, but by looking at their art in our museums, and by seeing performers from many countries at theaters in our own country. They may learn about us in similar ways. A Mexican family may see motion pictures made in the United States on their television. New voices are recorded to make the actors in the film appear to be speaking in Spanish when they were actually speaking English.
Bueno, pues, carta muy rara, dijo el emperador. ¿Quién es este Jackson? El New Orleans Jackson, le dijeron. ¿Qué? Dijo el emperador. ¿El New Orleans Jackson? Bueno.
There are so many different kinds of cooperation among nations that it's not surprising that governments have formed organizations especially to encourage cooperation. For example, to strengthen ties among American nations, the Organization of American States, the OAS, was formed. Another international organization is the United Nations. Its work strengthens ties among nations throughout the world. Because of the work of such organizations, men and women representing the nations of the world have adopted a number of international agreements and treaties. Among these has been a nuclear test ban treaty. It prohibited the treaty nations from exploding nuclear bombs on the surface of the Earth or in the atmosphere. A radio communications treaty set the range, power, and frequency of radio stations so that stations in nearby countries would not interfere with each other. Another agreement, an international treaty of the sea, guaranteed the rights of ships of all nations to sail and fish in international waters of the world. Treaties and international organizations seem pretty far from our everyday lives. But actually, everyone may take part in cooperation among nations. Even here at a high school in the United States, there is evidence of nations working together. Claude is not an American. He's a student from France. Umeki also is a visitor. Her home is in Japan. Umeki and Claude are exchange students studying in the United States. At the same time, American students have been sent to France, Japan, and other far-off countries. These boys and girls are, of course, younger. Perhaps someday some of them will be exchange students. But even now, they may help with international cooperation, too, with the letters they're writing. The letters will be sent to pen pals, children in a school in Thailand. Because of this involvement with other nations, perhaps someday these children will want to become exchange students, or travelers, or workers for international organizations. Then they will play more active roles in international affairs as nations continue to work together.